On February 21st, it was the 35th anniversary of my favorite video game franchise, The Legend of Zelda. With that, I wanted to talk about where I'd like to see the franchise going forward. Firstly, I'll talk about how I'd like to see the history of Zelda celebrated. Then I'll go over some gameplay and story elements I would like to see in future installments. Celebrating the past. In recent years, Nintendo has made an effort to modernize a lot of the games through re-releases. The 3DS remakes of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, as well as A Link Between Worlds, which is its own game, but with a lot of similarities to A Link to the Past, have done well to bring past games into the modern gaming landscape. They also released HD ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Wii U, and just announced an HD remaster of Skyward Sword for the Switch. There was also a remake of Link's Awakening on the Switch, released in 2019. So Nintendo has kept their past alive with these releases, but I would like to see each of those games playable on the Switch in one way or another. Similar to how Nintendo released a Mario 3D All-Stars collection for its 35th anniversary, I would like to see one for Zelda. This collection could have Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and/or any of the Game Boy and DS games. It's also the 20th anniversary for the Oracle games, and seeing as they haven't received a remake yet, they might be a good choice to include. Gameplay of the future. The upcoming Breath of the Wild 2 I expect will have similar gameplay to the first one, with minor improvements or tweaks to make it more enjoyable. But what I'd like to cover is something new. Nintendo doesn't generally like to make a new game in a series unless it's going to innovate, so gameplay for the next game in the series will have to add something new. I'd like to see them do that by taking some elements seen in past games and fleshing that out into a full game. The element I would like to see is interaction with others or a party type system. In Majora's Mask, we get a small segment in Sakon's hideout where gameplay switches between playing as Link for combat sections and Kafei for puzzle segments. I think there's a lot of potential there for creating entire dungeons that require switches between different characters with completely different gameplay. Wind Waker also touched on this a little bit with the Earth and Wind temples, having the player take control of Medli and Makar respectively for flight portions. I would like to see this gameplay used in conjunction similarly to the Oracle games and how they would combine to complete the game. Only in this case, each of the individual characters' sections would combine to complete a dungeon. We could see Link used for combat sections again. Zelda could finally be playable for puzzle sections. And maybe we could introduce Linkle into the franchise for her own sections, such as platforming. Story of the future. A lot of the games in the series stick to a tried and true formula, with only slight variations here and there. The lore of Zelda is vast, but outside of its timeline, hasn't really been played with too much. I'd like to see Nintendo really use its formula and lore to subvert the expectations of players. Some ideas I have would involve the way reincarnation is seen in the series. In the series, whenever a hero is needed, Link is reincarnated and earns the Triforce of Courage. I would love to see a story where, due to circumstances, the Link that was reincarnated fell down the wrong path, and another Link had to be reincarnated. Meaning there would be two Links, but only one could own the Triforce of Courage. Another way this could be done would be with Zelda. In the series, all princesses born to the royal family are named Zelda, and they gain the Triforce of Wisdom. But what if twins were born? Would they both be named Zelda? And which would get the Triforce of Wisdom? I think exploring these ideas could be very interesting for the game and would play into the gameplay elements I described earlier. Some other elements I would like to see, beyond the play on lore, would be expanding the world. Zelda has had many parallel worlds to Hyrule, and I would like to see a game where all of them are accessible as Link travels between them. Meaning Link could travel from Hyrule to Termina from Majora's Mask, to Holodrum and Labrynna from the Oracle games, to Koholint from Link's Awakening, and any of the other realms and previously seen areas. This could also go with some way of traveling along the Zelda timeline, maybe in a Chrono Trigger style, with specific points in the timeline that could be traveled to. These are just some scattered thoughts on what I would like to see, but they would need a lot more thought and planning to actually structure into a game. I can't wait to see what's next for the Zelda franchise. I'd love to know where others would like to see the franchise go, and if you like the ideas I had for it. This is the end card, which means you've made it to the end of the video, so thank you for watching. If you liked the video, hit like. If you want to see more, maybe hit subscribe.